But when they saw what happened in Juba, when people were killed door to door, when civilians were chased and people ran up to them as wild animals, they were able to get into the UNMISS. The lady who were there were kind enough to open the gate so then these people can get inside the camp. That was the beginning. It was in Juba, the capital city of South Sudan. If the people were protected in the seat of the country, they were killed in their own door, in the seat of the country, not far away from the sitting president of the country. What would make anyone think that it would be fair to tell them all over the country to leave and reduce in that rate by 70%, when in fact the war already begun?
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm joined by an amazing person, Dr. Gatluak Thach. I've followed his work for a while. He's an educator. He's a nonprofit sector leader. He's a community leader. He's an author. He's done a lot of things. He sits on many boards. So I'm really, really excited and honored to host him today. So welcome, Dr. Thach.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. I'm very pleased to be here. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. Happy to be here. Like it says, my name is Gatluak Thach. Present here, I live here in the United States of America. I have been a fan to this guy for a very while, a very long time. I do a lot of stuff. I run a nonprofit organization as a CEO for an organization called Nashville International Center for Empowerment. Been a leader for this institution for almost 2 decades. I also have been an adjunct professor for strategic leadership and management at the Tennessee State University. Of course, I've been on a board of a number of institutions, also been a volunteer and an advocate for refugees and immigrants all over. So thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. Thank you. So those who are joining us, we'll be talking about a number of things. The first one is the role of South Sudanese diaspora in the resumption of war and also in mitigating the crisis in South Sudan. And then we'll talk about UNMISS, the United Nations mission in South Sudan. And then there's an issue between the government of South Sudan and UNMISS in terms of scaling down the operations. So the government of South Sudan is saying one thing, UNMISS is saying one thing. And then we'll talk about the protection of civilians. So I want to begin by asking you to tell us your assessment of the situation in the face of the resumption of war between SSPDF and the government of the SSPDF, the government of South Sudan, and SPLM-IO.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. This is the war. When this situation reemerged in 2005 and 2025 last year, we thought that the government, the unified government, was supposed to come up with a way to stop it from what it might to be. But it did not stop. Started in Arthur. We thought that it will end in Arthur. But how it turned out in Arthur, it made all of us feel that this is not going to be anything that will stop soon because there was intention to what was happening. Now, it's no longer in Arthur, and it's no longer in where it is in the north of Jonglei. What happened also in the other part of the Jonglei too, was in the Pankak area. But it isn't in Equatoria. It's also in the central Equatoria. And it's also happening there now in United States. So what is now seems to be happening is that we have now gone back to what it used to be a known South Sudanese civil war, which was really terrible. Because the way our people have been fighting the war, it was different ways. In the way that they did not seem to follow any of the international law. They would not follow any guidance that was given to them. They would say they were to have a ceasefire, but the ceasefire doesn't really last for a while. So I think we could say now that nothing happened. In the next few weeks, we're back to full war in South Sudan. Now, if you look at South Sudan, particularly the live, you see that a number of the people have been displaced. Inside South Sudan, have been internally displaced. The number of South Sudanese refugees now, in the number of the camps, being Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and even in Sudan. There's been a lack of services. The outbreak of cholera now in South Sudan is also an additional condition inside South Sudan. There's no food. People have not farmed for a while. So in addition to that, there's not a lot of support internationally. And even now, used to be an international safeguard. Now, the international community used to say something that can either be respect or, in most cases, nobody listened to. Nobody even say anything about it now. So we don't know how this works. Is South Sudan really going to remain as a nation, or we are going back to square one when anybody can just come and get a piece of it and disintegrate it into a peace society? It is so sad. It is so sad to see. But that's what I'm seeing now.
Okay, thank you. So, one of the things that is confusing South Sudan is, as you know, South Sudan is one piece. That's all everyone in South Sudan wants. But sometimes there's this hubris, there's ego by leaders to say, okay, we'll want to fight. We don't want, the other side to think that we are weak. So, in terms of the resumption of the crisis as you see it, what is the main thing do you want the leaders to do as of now?
People want peace, like you say. People do not want to die. No one wants to die. No one wants to see his family dying. People have a country for a reason. Otherwise, we should have not had a country. We should have just lived wherever we wanted to live. We want to have a country that we will have a life to live in. Oh, first thing the leader should do, if there is a leader in the country, is to stop the war. They should work their best to stop the war. We don't need to war. We don't need to kill ourselves. Why are we killing ourselves? Well, we're killing ourselves because there is assumption of few leaders who think that they can control the other through military. And it has never happened. If you look at the tribal society that we have in South Sudan, we are a mixed group of people that try to live together. And in that aspect, we should understand that even prior to South Sudan, we were in our own territory. Each tribe used to live alone. After the independence in 2011, or even before the independence in 2011, let's say 2005, what have changed? What have changed is the name. That name did not translate it into the feeling. Nobody had seen the dividend of having a nation as a country. So now, if we were to not killing ourselves as animal, we're killing ourselves for a reason. We should just say, okay, we have a reason to survive. Then that means there's no need for us to kill ourselves. We should stop killing. We should talk on how do we come together as a diverse group of people that's supposed to live in one nation together and share those resources equally as we did that. I think that's what a leader, if we have a leader, that's what leaders should do.
Okay. So now let's come to the topic of today, the role of the South Sudanese diaspora. I usually say if you live outside South Sudan and you don't live on the ground, the only song you should sing is peace. That's what you should think. That's a song you should always think about and sing. But then you will see people online trying to fuel the war. So what do you say to that in terms of mitigating or contributing to the crisis in South Sudan for people who live abroad?
South Sudanese who live abroad in the United States of America, in Canada, Australia, or even in East Africa, have significantly contributed into the creation of the South Sudan. If you look back to the time when we were advocating, campaigning for having a nation called South Sudan, it was those in diaspora that really played a significant role. I remember in America where we were to go to protest, we had to go to meet with the congressional leadership, tell them our story, sharing the need, and asking to bring about peace in South Sudan. That was exactly what was done in Australia, that was exactly what was done in Canada, and even also in East Africa. So we had played that role significantly. South Sudanese too, who are also outside, especially those in the country where they can be able to do much. They were positively bringing income to their family. They supported their family. They support them through education, food security, health services, and also the small businesses. So on a positive note, there's a lot of things that are really done by it. And yes, of course, there are negative aspects that are contrary. So if you look at for the last few months, or even beginning of last year, the diaspora rhetoric, the debate on social media, had created a lot of tension and exacerbated the divides within the ethnic community that we have. There are those who are supporting the government, and whatever the government does, came up with a theory that they thought made more sense. And there are those who are contrary to what the government does. And there are those who went directly to the kid to talk about what the particular tribe does to other group of people. Anything that is being discussed by the diaspora is being heard by people from back home. And especially it's being heard by people who can only take things outside without analyzing it furtherly. And it hurt. It hurt. It introduced a new dynamic that actually contributed to the vision that we had. But we cannot rule out the contribution of the diaspora on the positive. Diasporans can go back to question themselves the meanings of their advocacy in the earliest 205 before the Comprehensive Peace Agreement was signed. Yes, diaspora intellectuals too, during that period, they contributed into the policy discussion of what needed to be the country. They contributed into ideas of writing and so many other stuff that they've done. But right now, things are changing. And I can personally say that the intellectuals, the diaspora, must have to revisit what they used to do. They must have to think of what they meant when they were talking about having a nation called South Sudan. What is it that they were looking for at the time? Otherwise, why do we left Sudan? Why do we left Khartoum? If what we end up having is for us to just go back and push ourselves the way we are pushing ourselves now. And if what we did then was wrong, then okay. But if what we did was right, then why should we revisit that? So I would say there are ways that we can apply the current crisis for not only benefiting the civilians that are suffering now, the refugees the people that are being displaced, but also to bring about the change that is needed, so that we can revise and bring hope about the situation that we're facing.
Okay. So there's the elephant in the room is the issue of ethnicity. And we are products of our history. So we are divided based on our ethnic groups. So sometimes some people would ally with the ethnic groups because that's what the in-group is asking of them. And if they do otherwise, they'll maybe marginalized within the group. So I know some people who would in private say, we need to unite as South Sudanese. That's the best we would do, and that's what we should do. But when they go outside, they don't do that. They still play the ethnic cards. So how do we deal with this so that people don't hold themselves within their own ethnic groups and then magnify the problem on the social media to look good within their ethnic group?
Yeah, I think this is a good question, and I think we have to be honest here. There is nobody that comes from nowhere. You come from somewhere, and that you bring it from your family to your small clan, etc. And that is always true, especially if you feel that where you came from is being hurt. There's no sugarcoat it. You can never feel happy and celebrate anything else rather than try to figure out how to go about assisting them to get out of the crisis that they are in. But what I think is also important for us to know is, what is it that we value? Are we values the nationalities, a nation? Is it that bigger strategically, or is ethnicity only the important part of it? But what is it that your ethnicity or your community would do alone that you would not need other people for? A nation can never be a nation because of one particular. Yes, your groups are good, but can your group and other group work together and live together and survive together as a nation? I think that is what is important. We have to be honest to ourselves, and one has to tell his own group, that their own ethnic group, that alone we cannot be a country. We will need other people to live together, regardless of what any group say. You alone, you are nothing. Because there's no nation now that has only that one ethnic group. Even Somalia doesn't have that. So there's always going to be other people with you. And then if you need peace, they also need peace. If you value life, they also value life. If you want to live in harmony, they also need to live in harmony. Why could you all not have that?
Okay, so you mentioned something about leadership, and the people themselves cannot begin to do things unless there's a leadership pointing them towards a solution. Now, how can the diaspora spread as they are and the social media is not regulated? I can say anything I want on social media in the comfort of my room. As someone who is involved not only as a leader practically, but also someone who teaches leadership, how can the diaspora come together to avoid this vitriol that is dividing people and contributing to the suffering of our people back home? How can they approach this?
Yeah, leadership is everything. Leadership is everything, and if we wanted to take it to level that we needed to be, we have to prioritize leadership. Leadership is the solution for any crisis, and if there is no crisis, there's no leadership. But when there is a crisis, there's always a need really for good leadership to come. I think forum like what you did, the platform like what you have, and the other platform can come up with a strategy that recognize the need for unity and voice for all intellectuals and all the diaspora community, regardless of their ethnicity or their background. They can come together and question themselves, why are we not solving our problem? And what are some of the things that we can do, and how can we prioritize those things? I think if we can look at that bigger picture, if we can look at how to bring and identify ourselves, and you have the value, you have things that you value, okay? One of the things that you value is having a country. If somebody gonna ask Dr. Quer, where are you from? You will be proudly say, I'm from South Sudan. But if South Sudan is a joke on the street, how would you make you feel? How would it make you feel good about saying you're from South Sudan? That's the mixed picture, right? So all of us wanted to have a values that represent who we are and how we are. And those are the leaders that can actually make that happen. I think we can identify people who can strategically come up with programs and ways to bring our voice together. And if we can have a unified voice as diaspora, we can actually figure out how to address issues back of uniformity. If we do that, that could be another way to influence the crisis that we have. Another thing to do, the crisis that we have, is that right now as we speak, Europe in particular, are going through a hard time right now. Okay? Are going through a hard time. I was looking at what is going on in Vancouver. Children of whose mom and dad were killed. They are under the tree with no water, with no food, with no children, not anything like that. If you have leadership now, you don't need to have this be supported by its only newer community. You would want to bring every South Sudanese in diaspora coming together to bring about the suffering, to bring about the end of the suffering for the children. Get them some food, get them some medicine. Take care of these people. And then by that small thing that the diaspora people can do, that can actually make other people feel like, wow, we are all together there. Maybe we have to figure out how to come together and forget about the war. Those are sort of the things, some of the things that leaders do to bring about an end to the suffering of their own people and unify and come up with that.
Okay. Is it possible for people in the diaspora to 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 show allegiance to movement? For example, some people would support the government of South Sudan, some people would support SPLM-IO, and still be able to say, as you said, this is our country. At the end of the day, if we don't come together, we'll not have a country. Is it possible at a human level to say we have allegiance to all these political and military movements? Can they still come together and do what you said? Or is it basically impossible until there's peace?
If we're thinking of a bigger picture, if we're looking at the bigger picture thing, it is possible. Because at the end of the day, it's about serving human life. At the end of the day, it's about serving the country for tomorrow. It's not about serving one particular group or the others. Because the thing is, if we are all South Sudanese, we are South Sudanese because of who we are. If we have a country, we are a country because of what we have. So with that being said, I don't think there's any problem for anybody to serve the humanity. Now, I will not tell you to give financial or whatever support to a particular armed group, okay? If you're not supporting that, you will not have to do that because there will be that armed group using that support to hurt other people. That's not the case. I'm talking about at the human level for the humanitarian thing. I think you could do it called support because at the end of the day, the objective is about having a nation, is serving the people in that nation. Diaspora can also come up with their own formula. They can also have their own formula. They can say, we can only support people who are in a mixed area or people who are in this particular group that are not being supported by government or they're not being supported by the government, if that is the case. And that would probably give everyone, regardless of which side you're supporting, to actually say, okay, my contribution will actually go to serve a particular group of people like this, and nobody's going to be like that. The question is, why are we fighting? If we are fighting to have independent, we already have the independent. If we are fighting for a change, okay, let's figure out how to bring about that change. So if the change is not happening that we want, and the only solution for it is to fight, then how are we going to fight? Maybe it's a fight that we need to discuss how do we go about it. Maybe it's a fight that doesn't really need to include women and children and disabled people and elderly people and the elected ones. Maybe it is a fight that has to be, it has to be fought in this particular area and not the other area. I think that always has to be wait for a thing like that.
Okay. So one of the challenges we have abroad is it's not just between tribes, even within tribes themselves. For example, every weekend, if you have a wedding or any social event, we still congregate. So that's the challenge. So in terms of the communication between leaders, and speak to the leaders abroad, for example, whether it's in Canada, every city in Canada, every city in the US, and we have local leaderships, whether they are based on political parties, whether they are based on ethnicity. What would you tell them as a process? You've spoken about a number of things, but what would you tell these leaders as a launchpad to bring people together across ethnic line? What do you tell these leaders?
So part of the challenge to our culture is that sometimes when things happen back home, we misinterpret them into our being. What we needed to do actually is to maybe create some sort of a shared point where we could say we are here now and our people are here. And when we are here and respond to the situation right there, maybe there has to be a way for us to say we first and then our family second. And whatever happened here, let it not affect us and destroy our relationship, destroy our unity, destroy how we are living our life. Because at the end of the day, we will still need ourselves. I remember when this crisis began in 2013, before 2013, every community that you go to, you'll find everybody work together. Sudanese work together. They do everything from children's things to elderly thing, community, everything was no question. And then when 2013 happened, it fall apart. And then when another peace was signed, and we thought it were to be implemented, then people start coming together. And then it didn't really happen. I think what we needed to ask ourselves is, what is the big picture? What is the big picture? What can we not do and why? Okay, I think the leaders on those groups, they have to question themselves what kind of interest their people really need. Why are they fearing of asking other people to work together with them? So one of the examples that were done by different groups that I know where the pastor of different ethnic groups, business community, decided that once a month we will come together and pray together. That really brings some healing at that aspect. So also, it also happened in one other group that there were funeral services that were done. And then the people go across community line and they bring themselves together. I think what is needed is for this group of people to start to identify the like-minded individual leader of this, and then come and say, hey, what are some of the things that we can do from here? Because it is from there where they can begin to do things in order for them to figure out what they can also be able to do from there, from overseas. Because you can do step by step. I know back home crisis affect us significantly, cause the trauma to us, cause disunity to us. And even sometimes it made it harder for some people even to suffer. But we have to figure out a way to unite, to work together, and to address issues together. That's the only way our significance will make sense. Okay, at the high level, we have to look at who we are as a country, as a people, and if we can do that, we will be able to address the small issues that are actually dividing us. Because some of the things that are actually dividing us, they are not dividing other communities that we are together with them. There are the crisis in Somalia, but Somalia and one unity here in diaspora. The crisis in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia do a lot of things together. That crisis, even when Kenyan goes to their 2022-07 issues in Kenya, there was a lot of things that Kenyan community will continue to do together, and et cetera, and et cetera. So even if other communities, diaspora community in the Western world, are overcoming the overseas original country issues, why should South Sudan not do the same thing? I don't see that. I think if it is because, I will not say it's because of our humble beginning or how touched we are with our people, because otherwise, your people is the same thing as their people too. So why should we not do the same thing? We cannot lose the bigger picture of who we are. So all these crises will come and go. What will not go is who we are.
So you're right, because one of the things that our people don't seem to understand, they understand and maybe they don't operationalize it, is before 2013, all these problems did not exist in the way they are. Tribal issues have always existed. I remember in Calgary when I look at the leadership problems. If you look at the camp, the way people were dividing themselves in Calgary based on leadership, it wasn't tribal. So you had one camp with all the different tribes, and I was looking at it. It was amazing. It wasn't based on tribe. It was based on individual alliances. Come 2013, and then it went back to tribes. So, and that is one of the things we need to stress to our people, that the problem begins with the elite, with the leadership, and then it divides our people. But the people themselves do not hate one another. So
Correct.
we are led by the leaders who have their own interest, but we, the people who suffer, especially the civilians in South Sudan, do not even know sometimes why these things begin. And that is one of the things they don't see. Now, I want to come to the issue of UNMISS, United Nations mission in South Sudan. For those of you watching, there's UNMISS wants to scale down the operations in South Sudan. So the government of South Sudan agrees, but they want it to be done based on what the government of South Sudan wants. So UNMISS wants to cut down operations by about 28%. The government of South Sudan wants it to be cut down by 70%. And they want UNMISS to close down the PO site in Bentiu and in Wau. And UNMISS is saying, okay, that is problematic because that is the basis that allows them to protect civilians. Now, in terms of this, do you think UNMISS should scale down based on what the government of South Sudan says, or do you agree with UNMISS that they should only scale down by 28%?
Chris, if you look back what happened in 2013, you will agree with me that number of lives was served in Juba, South Sudan, because of enemies. What the enemies did in 2013 was extraordinary. Their mission to South Sudan was to guide the peace, protect the civilian, but their site was not meant to be a camp for displacing people within the country. That's not how it is in the other countries. But when they saw what happened in Juba, when people were killed door to door, when civilians were chased and people ran up to them as wild animals, they were able to get into the UNMISS. The lady who were there were kind enough to open the gate so then these people can get inside the camp. That was the beginning. It was in Juba, the capital city of South Sudan. If the people were protected in the seat of the country, they were killed in their own door, in the seat of the country, not far away from the sitting president of the country. What would make anyone think that it would be fair to tell them all over the country to leave and reduce in that rate by 70%, when in fact the war already begun? So it doesn't really make sense. Anybody with a logic would say otherwise. Because if the government was wise enough to protect civilians, then now what happened in Jonglei should be an example. Okay, what happened now in Jonglei should be an example, because I could tell you, if Jonglei now had a UNMISS in, let's say, in Walgak or in Wat or in Puri, you will see a lot of civilians run into those places right now. Okay, they could have gone there already, because if you go and hear some of the stories that are being shared, those are heartbreaking stories. You know, we're talking about the story of the blind old men. Okay, blind old men left in their hut, and they will come and burn inside their hut. Okay, a older woman with her grandchildren were chased and killed. One of the child was killed. These are work that can never be done for other human beings, leave alone your country. National army will be doing things like this. So I don't see why the government would want to do that, because they would be like signing the genocide, like agreeing to have the genocide. So I would say it might not even be possible even to have the 20% UNMISS removed, leave, if what is happening now continue to happen for the next few weeks. They will, instead of reducing them, they're probably going to be more coming to South Sudan, whether we like it or not, unless things change. So I cannot see any need for advocating to reduce when, in fact, lives are at risk.
Okay. So, as you know, I'm big on the protection of civilians. That's one of the things I stress. So, one of the argument the government is saying is the issue of sovereignty, that the UNMISS has been in South Sudan and sometimes it does things that infringe on the sovereignty of South Sudan. But then we know the war has been resumed. And instead of asking for the closure of the sites, they should be left open so that civilians on both sides who want to run to protection sites can use these sites. So what do you think is their motivation when the war has resumed, but they're asking UNMISS to close them down? What is the motivation for them?
So it is the same thing. Well, I would say this, and I totally can see what the government really wanted to do. Because if you look back to some of the rhetoric, especially going to Sulfur himself, when he mentioned that the only survival of those who had made it to there was just because of UNMISS. And he also mentioned that there was one time that he mentioned that those who ran to UNMISS were soldiers, okay? They were soldiers. So now the government seem to be saying that they are an offer-handed. So anybody that will go to places like UNMISS, they will go there because the rebel or the outside, the rebel forces are not at the right place. They are not in the right position. And they could probably, if they try to run anywhere, they will actually be caught and captured. So they will not have a place to go and hide themselves in. That could be one intention. Another intention, yes, I understand. I have always been talking a lot about the sovereignty. Sovereignty is important. That's why you have the country. But what is it that you have a country for, to have a sovereignty in the first place? You have a country to protect life. If you don't protect life, you don't have a sovereignty. You have a country to deliver resources, deliver services. If you don't deliver services, you don't have sovereignty. You have a country to protect your border. If your borders are ensuring the way they are, you don't have a sovereignty. You have a sovereignty because you have what it takes to be considered a nation in a sense. So all in all, if you look at what we have in South Sudan, it's hard to even complain about other coming to your country when in fact you are not delivering the basic thing that you should at the country that have the need for sovereignty. The UNMISS doesn't need to be in South Sudan after this time. That is 20 years ago. 20 years ago, a child that was born 20 years ago is no longer a child. It's actually an adult that has children. So by now, we should not have anybody living in South Sudan if the government in South Sudan did what it was supposed to do. But they did not, protecting the people. And that's why other people are there to protect their own people. Why would you let people like that go? Just because you wanted to kill whoever will run anywhere? And I think if that is the intention, it's not a good intention.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question that may be controversial. The government of South Sudan and the spokesperson of SSPDF always stresses that they want to protect civilians. The government also says the same thing, that they want to protect civilians. But when they say things like this, asking for the closure of protection sites when the war has resumed, is it that they don't care about civilians, or they just don't know how to go about things? So what is the issue here?
Well, that's a good question. I agree that everyone wanted to have a control on some aspect. The government want to control. They want to control the country. They want to control whoever lives in the country. And if they can see a way for them to control the country, say, for example, if the civilian and whoever had the gun run to the government and drop the government, and government will attack them at their horn and nothing happened to them, they're not getting harmed. That's exactly the intent the government may be looking for. That can also be the same with the rebel. But now, when it is not like such, when it doesn't really happen like that, when people get hurt, they get killed, then it's becoming a question of how. So yes, they might say they wanted to protect civilians, but not what you say that makes sense. It's what you do. It's what you do that is con. The result of what you do is what exactly tell who you are, because you are not what you say. You are what you say, what you do. And it is truly questionable when the government say that, and we're seeing the result otherwise. And if the rebels are also doing the same thing, we can also question that as well. I think now in South Sudan, the life is at risk. It seems like nobody cares. Nobody cares, because if you can chase your people to the desert, and you don't care whether, and you burn their houses, you burn their livelihood, you kill their elderly people, their disabled people, the children run to with nobody. Then what care are you talking about? Who are you going to protect when it is not these people?
So and that's the challenge that warring parties have. They will say these things, but I asked a while ago that these groups have to put in place stringent modalities to be able to punish people who violate these rights. For example, what happened with the shrine, what happened with soldiers being seen pushing down, houses and burning them down. But no one has been held accountable. Olony said what he said, which is something that riled up the world, especially the United Nations, because that is a genocidal language. But the leaders do not seem to see this as a problem, and they say they care about the people.
Yeah, they cannot see the problem because they don't think what they do is the problem, and that's the real reason. And when they have a rhetoric like what Olony said, that actually is internalized by the soldier. When the army wins, they win like they've been commanded to do what the leader, the commander told them to do. Whether that they meant what they say or not, it will be taken literally. So the result is what we see. I think the challenge of our country is that you cannot see people like they value life. You cannot see people like they value people. And it is very difficult to have a society that is led by people who do not seem to care about the life of the other people. You can never lead people that you do not love. You can never lead people that you do not care for. You can never lead people that you cannot help and don't even want to see them surviving. Pretending that you are doing this just to protect them when otherwise what you do is extraordinarily different from what it exactly is supposed to be. That makes things difficult for anybody else to see. I would say that the government has lost not only the international interest, it has actually lost the South Sudanese interest. It has lost because it does not stand for what it is for. A country is a country not by name or flag. It is a country because it protects, it guides, it serves, it helps people. And that's what makes it to be a country. And that's not what we see in South Sudan. So if we don't support the life of our people, if we don't protect the life of our people, then what is it that we have as the people of the
There's a question of leadership I have been asking many guests.
Mhm.
The leaders in South Sudan from 2005, these were people who had liberation credentials. They had some plan to liberate the country. So they talked about the freedom of South Sudan, what South Sudanese suffered in Sudan. Now they assumed leadership in 2005, and there was a lot of euphoria. There was a lot of hope by many South Sudanese. But then we've seen now they failed miserably. Now the question I ask is, did they fail because they didn't want to develop the country, or did they fail because they just didn't know what to do? And that the problem became unwieldy, and they were really frustrated. So what is the issue here?
They failed because they did not know what to do. So the thing is, Dr. Krill, you can never drive your car and go anywhere if you don't know where you're going. You can get lost. What happened is sometimes leadership can emerge in a time when nobody knows why it's becoming act. Because now part of the challenge is that leadership is not just one leader. The people don't understand this. Sometimes they misunderstood this. Leadership is the collective people that live together, that work together, that act together. But they can be led by one leader. Because leadership is a verb. It's not a noun. It is an action that is being done by a particular group of people. But those particular group of people will be led by one leader. If that leadership, the group of people, cannot guide, cannot provide, cannot counsel the leader and protect the leader with what it means to actually lead them into the right direction, then it will be very difficult for them to get anywhere. Leadership always have to have vision, okay? They have to visualize it. But sometimes the vision may not come directly from the leader himself. It can come from the group of the leader, or even from the people. And then they will come and visualize what's needed. You could visualize to have South Sudan, like Dr. John has, a united Sudan, where we could all work as a diverse group of people. That we can have this, we can have that, we have that. That was the visualization of the one leader. Now the leader have to strategize when they have the vision. The strategic leader that try to strategize things, they do not produce things that do not have results. They have to produce things that provide results, that guide people toward what they need. And that is really for any nation now that succeeds, like I said earlier, had a visionary people that work together with strategic people, strategists that actually plan and strategize on things that have to be delivered. And then, of course, they will mobilize things. Now, mobilization is bringing the whole group, bring the resources, put the resources into things that were planned to meet what was visualized. If we visualize South Sudan to be a nation, what kind of nation do we need? We don't have a seaport, but we can have a relationship with Kenya and take our thing through Kenya. We can have a relationship with Sudan and take our thing through Sudan, like the oil now. We can have all the other stuff. Now we can build a South Sudan that have extraordinary resources. If you look at all the resources we have in South Sudan, it's just amazing natural resources. But a leader with a vision is the only person that can actually have that. And then visualize it, plan on things that need to happen, and then mobilize it. We didn't have that in South Sudan. It's not that Salva Kiir cannot deliver that. It is that he either might not listen to his people that was with him, or he was not listened to And I always don't say that it is educational issues. Education produce things. You and I are educators. So we have tools, we have ideas, we have resources, we have all the other stuff that we have. But that together with wisdom that we have, if we are not being supported or we are not putting them to the good use, there will be nothing, regardless of what you have. I think the South Sudan is in what it is now because of lack of leadership.
So the question I want to ask is related to what you said about having a vision. So a leader can have a vision, but he or she also needs a team to be able to help him or her operationalize that vision. Now, SPLM has become stagnant and it's not moving forward. We don't even know whether there's such a thing as SPLM nowadays. So do you think that the leadership as a leader, or do you think leadership as a collective? Because you can have a leader that guides everyone else in the party, but there's also leadership as a collective, not just one person, but leadership of the party to sit together and say, this is our vision. So in this case, what was the case? Was it just one man, or was it a collective failure by SPLM?
So John Maxwell, like I said earlier, said everything rises and falls because of the leader. Now, when he meant that one leader, one person, provide the way, direct the way, guide the way, like Nelson Mandela said. He has to see that vision himself, even if it is provided to him or her. If he can't see it, he can guide people through it. Or if it does come from him, he has to be able to sell it. So then the ideas of his strategy will come in the rest of the team. So one individual is very significant in any society, but that person can be supported, can help. And that person also knows who to bring to be part of it. I cannot bring anybody that cannot help me to be part of my circle, because those people are the ones that can actually make you deliver or provide the outcome that you need. If they're wrong people, the person who knows that they are wrong people is you. You cannot bring them to your circle. And those that you bring to the circle, those become part of your leadership. But it is you who actually can bring them to your circle. And if you bring the wrong people to the circle, regardless of how good you are, you will be dragged down to their level. And the only thing you will see is what they want to see. And you will guide no one. And I will take an example of Jane Council about that, for example. They're very extraordinary people. When I look at their bios, they're very good people. What I don't know is whether they will have hard time convening Sulfur for what they want South Sudan to be, or they have a wrong intention to what they want South Sudan to do. Because those are former general, former minister, former educator, like you and I. So they were supposed to deliver to help the guy. But if this guy does not see them as successful for him, he can let them go and get the right people to help him. And he can instruct the country what it needs. One person is significant in any setting.
And that is where we have a problem in South Sudan, because we have the top leader to guide the rest of the leadership to be able to say, okay, this is what we need to do. And then he's going to ask, okay, I need to develop the economy of the country. What is the team that can help us? I want to shape our foreign policy.
Yeah.
What is the team we need to do that?
Correct.
Now, the question that other people are asking, and many Western scholars were saying, and I don't agree with it, someone like Alex Duval, whose work I don't really like, he has this impression that the SPLM leaders were not interested at all in developing the country. And I don't agree with it. As you said, they just didn't know what to do, but they were too proud to ask for assistance.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's not true. That's not true. I think what happened is when we had the independent South Sudan, we end up having a lot of things that we don't know what to do with. Okay. They end up having a billion of dollars that they don't have anything to do with. And number one thing that could have been done is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are our priorities. And that's what we will do with these resources. Now, the question is, do we have the technical people to implement the leadership priorities? And that's because, again, now the leadership is the group of those at PLM together with the leader. They can bring themselves right people that they can be guided to do what needed to be done. And they can deliver. And if they don't deliver, they will bring the right people to do it. But they didn't know what to do. They didn't have any idea of what to do with the resources they have. They were not guided. All of them thought of seeing things that seem like they will not end, infinite. And there's nothing like that. They thought there was this money. And I heard one time, one general went in a room with a young lady. I don't want to say this here, but and spend a lot of money and then open all the back to told the person to take whatever amount of money, an individual one. These are the money that can build the school. These are the money that can build a road. These are money that can build a hospital. And instead of taking people to Kenya, Uganda, or even to India, we should have a road. We should have a hospital. We could have a model hospital in Juba, or even in 10 states of South Sudan. We should have a good school. The University of Juba in Juba should be a model university where everybody wants to come to that university. Southern University in South Sudan. You and I can go and teach that. There's a lot of things that could have been done. But no, they were not guided. They were not told what to do. They just try to relax with the resources that they found. And, at the end of the day, we are where we are because of that.
I've talked to a couple of people, and one of the things they were saying is there were actually strategies put in place by SPLM. When I talked to former governor of Northern Bargazal, Kwelagwir, he said the SPLM Secretariat for Finance and Economy, they sat and talked to economists, and they laid down the economic strategy, and the government did not use it. And other people have said that ideas would be taken to the president, and he wouldn't use them. He wouldn't operationalize them. And that goes to what you were saying, that the leader has to be able to embrace these things for them to be operationalized. And that is one of the challenges. Why? If he knows and he cares about the country, and if you look at the speeches going way back to independence speech, brilliant speeches, and even his speech today at the AU, is that he is embracing peace and he's working for peace. So where's the disconnect between what is given as a leader and he is not using them when he says he cares about the country? Where's the disconnect here?
Yeah, there's a lot of disconnects. There's a lot of disconnects. Like I said earlier, what you say is not really much if it's not what you do. And what you do, you can never do anything that you do not really know what you do. And I think that's where the challenge comes. He had an intent to have a power. He wanted to have a leadership power. And power itself to him, might also mean to have access to resources that he can manipulate the situation and guide things according to what he wants. But having a model countries with peaceful mean, with the development and etc., that vision he doesn't have it. And it doesn't really even know how to connect about things like that. Because the guy had a lot of exposure to the outside world. And then of course the surrounding people who could have helped him. They went there to not only tell him what he liked, they probably want to just get something from him and doesn't even want to share anything about productive that could be resourceful to the rest of the people in the country. I think those are sort of the things that really happened. He might say good things there and here, but those things will end there. They will never be taken anywhere or even mean anything. They might not even be anything, an idea that he could even think of too. They could be developed by people who put together the speech writer and speech writers. Sometimes they're smart people. They will look at a comparison of language that has been used somewhere and make more sense to make it a point that will make peace in the heart of the other people when really it's not the case. So I think the guy did not have what it takes. Didn't want to learn, because again, leadership is all about learning. You have to keep learning. You don't settle with what you have. You might not read books or attend seminar or anything like that. But if you're willing to learn, you always have to learn. You always have to learn new things. You have to learn new ideas. You have to surround yourself with people who challenge your thinking, who give you not only what you wanted to hear, but how you can actually make things happen to change the life of the people that you have. And they didn't have those kind of people. That was the challenge.
So one of the things I've noticed, not just with President Salva Kiir, but with other African leaders, when they assume power, they say a lot of good things. But then leadership becomes something that transitions into their identity, becomes part of who they are. So if you remove it, they wouldn't know what to do. The same thing with Museveni. It has become integral to who they are. So do you think that is something that is happening here?
It is. And this is in African, I think it is an African blood for things for I would say for a very long time now, with the exception of Nelson Mandela, exception of a few leaders, including the Kofi Annan, few leaders in Africa, majority of our brothers and our uncle in Africa, they don't see the life after the leadership position. They don't see how they can survive without becoming a leader. What they do not understand, if they look into a transition power to young people or to other people, that actually weights you into the right position. See the Haile Mariam of Ethiopia, who resigned. Not, I don't think it was in a good time, but he did. He did it right. What is it he now? He does. He's really a very respectful person in Ethiopia. He's actually a respectful person in the whole Africa now. Anywhere the Prime Minister of Ethiopia goes, he will go with him. And he will actually place him in his right mind. And it's that guy is giving him wisdom. In the United States, for example, many of the leaders, with the exception of very reason, they always come together when there is anything. Not only when they are coming for things that are bad, but even when they're coming for celebration of a good thing, they all come together, share ideas together, and give counsel to the current leadership. Our people do not understand that when you transition out from power, your power did not go away. Your previous work might be forgiven. Salva can be forgiven for things that he has done. If he can honestly transition out of the power and give room to somebody else and say, enough is enough for me, let me relax now. He can actually have that kind of thing. But he will not do it. And it's not only him. Even whoever come up to him might also have the same thing. Yeah. Because that's the thing. They don't really think that they will have a better life afterward. And that's not true. Because this life, we live it once. What will actually make sense is your legacy. Is what you do to your people, what you do to your country, what you left behind. Did you leave road? Did you leave development in your country? Did you save a lot of people's life? Did you solve problems? Because the leadership is about solving problems. If you cannot solve the problem, why do we need a leader? A leader is needed because he can solve problems. He can direct people where they need to go. He can visualize things that people need to have. He can develop, he bring something to people they do not have. Countries now that are led so well, we're seeing them. Divide, for example, it has been in existence very short. Now everybody, even in the Western world, they want to go to divide, right? Mm-hmm. And that's because of the leadership. You cannot sit and think that you don't know what to do with it. Give it to somebody else, let it try.
I usually tell people, if a leader starts by providing services and center the people, and everything they do is centered in providing for the people. For example, people want to travel from Juba to Ye or from Juba to Malakal, and they build roads, they build clinics, they build schools. You can never be wrong if you do that. And that's part of empowering people, that people can actually do things for themselves. But it seems to be very difficult, even if they start with something that is really, really tiny. So I want to bring in the SPLM-IO in terms of leadership, in terms of solution. Where do they fit in here in terms of leadership, in terms of solution to the crisis in the country? Where do you think they fit in?
Yeah, SPLM-IO, for those who are viewing, I'm not an affiliated to SPLM-IO, but I have been. But as we speak now, I support the cause that they have, because I think that when they signed the agreement, in fact, to be honest with you, from the very beginning, I want to make sure that people understand this. I was supporting SPLM-IO from the very beginning, but when Dr. Riek went to Juba for this last time, I disagree with him, because I knew what happened now will happen. I was not a Munding. I was not a Munding, and I was not a Munding, and I was not, and I hope Salva Kiir make me feel wrong. It would have been a great thing to Dr. Riek, because I really told him when what happened in 2016 happened in 2015, when what happened in 2015 2013 happened in 2013, when the process of implementation lasts for many, many months, I thought that he would have either stay out and have the third party doing the work, bring all the consulting forces together, bring about the peace, because if the army was consolidated, and they were assigned the role together, and all the things that were supposed to be done were put together with a revitalized peace agreement, we would have a peace now in South Sudan. Had Dr. Riek not gone to Juba and formed the government in Juba, by now things might have been different. So that was what I was saying at the time.
Why did you think that way? What was your rationale?
My rationale is based on the fact that I thought that because the thing is, what happened in 2013 was more than just a division between the movement, between the political movement, because there's nothing that could actually get into the civilian. Okay, targeting civilian, killing women and children, and all the other stuff. That was what hurt me, because if it were between the political leadership, a division within them, they could, even if they were a coup, he could have just gone after that coup and captured those army, those involved in coup, and jail them or do whatever he does with them. What involved the civilian? What killed women and children? There was nothing. So he made it tribal. The Sulfur made it tribal. When he made it tribal, the intent for him was not to kill Nuer specifically alone, was that Nuer would be killed, for Denka to be killed. So there will be a war that will be divide people on the ethnic line. Then Denka will protect Sulfur, and they will be protected by Nuer, and the other South Sudanese will divide themselves or will sit out silent. That was the intent. That was the intent. That was exactly what Sulfur planned. And it came to exactly what he meant. So me personally was saying that. So maybe if there will be a unified forces, and forces are unified together, professional forces are put together, maybe what happened in 2013 will be prevented from repeating itself. And in that case, people will not go back to war. And there will be real peace coming to South Sudan. And by then, if there will be election, either Dr. Riek come, or even if Dr. Riek didn't come, maybe somebody else going to come. And then we'll see whether we'll have somebody. Because it doesn't mean, to me, I'm telling you, if you do not deliver, even Dr. Krill Garang does not deliver, I will not say that he'll be the leader of South Sudan if he cannot deliver. So I have nothing to, even if I will become in power and they cannot deliver, then they will not be any different from Sulfur. But what I know for sure, I think if somebody else with a different vision, different ideas of what he or she wants for South Sudan, get into power with the fresh ideas, he will probably be different from Sulfur. That whether it be IO or anybody else, it would be different from Sulfur.
I asked this question to Isaac Gang. I said, okay, you understood as SPLM-IO that President Kiir is not interested in implementing peace. You signed the peace, and then Dr. Riek Machar went to Juba knowing that the peace agreement will not be implemented. Why? What he said was that Dr. Riek wanted to show that he's not the problem. He wanted to sign the agreement, go to Juba and try to implement the agreement, and then show the world that, look, it's not me who is the problem. The problem is the government under Kiir Mayardit. So he was sort of self-sacrificing in the interest of peace. That's the argument he was making. Does that make sense to you?
My friend Isaac, I respect him so well. That I think is what Dr. Riek meant, and all of us knew he was not the problem. But could you not look at this differently than that? I think I could have done it differently than that. He was not the problem for sure. But does it resolve? Does it actually bring the war to an end? It does not. Because even if he knew he was not the cause of the problem, and he wanted to sacrifice himself for that, would it end Sulfur from going after all the other people? It did not. It didn't stop him. It did not. So it was not really the solution of the problem. The solution of the problem, to my sense, is it has to be a unified forces, unified, and bring the security to the people of South Sudan, when everybody will feel safe and honest and trusted, and pretty much I think nobody would want to control and tell them to go back to war and fight yourself again. So that's what I think would have actually made more sense, and I stand with my position on that one. But yes, Dr. Isaacs, he was convinced with Dr. Riek ideas of trying to see if Sulfur will have a mercy on him. If I were Salva Kiir, I would have had mercy on Dr. Riek, because really it was a sacrifice to go to your enemy with your aim to end it. A person that actually chased you up for two consecutive significant events, 2013 and 2016, Only few people can do that. And Dr. Dick did it, and hopefully he will get out unharmed. And then next time we'll say a lesson like this cannot be better.
Mhm. So now we have two scenarios. There's war. There's peace overtures from President Kiir. The Tumaini is now about to be resumed. They will go to South Africa under the tutelage of the president of South Africa. The president is now in Addis Ababa at the AU saying that he's interested in bringing peace to South Sudan. So I know you are not part a leadership of SPLM-IO. I'm just asking you as someone who teaches leadership, as a leader, as a community leader, and knowing what is happening with the civilians in South Sudan. Where's the path now? If we say peace, then we know the government is not going to respect it. If we say war, then we know totalitarian leaders or dictatorial leaders, they like the war because it helps them entrench themselves in leadership. As you said, they would divide divide the South Sudanese, so the Nuer support Dr. Riek Machar, and then the Jiang support Salva Kiir. And who is the beneficiary of this? The president remains in power. So war at the end of the day, even if the IO is saying we want to fight, this is the government. It has resources. It has regional connections. So going the path of war is not going to be helpful. So we are stuck here. Peace, there's a risk the president is not going to respect it. War, it's going to re-entrench the president. So what is our solution here, Dr. Thach?
Yes, Dr. Chris, this is a good question. I really want to be honest here. I think the people of South Sudan need peace. They really need peace. They don't really need war. The wars, we have been born in war. You and I were born in war. We grew up in war. We're still in war. Our children now are in war. They grew up and have their own children in war. That's not supposed to be like that. We're not supposed to be a war developing country. It's not what it's supposed to be. But what kind of peace that can Salva Kiir bring? What kind of peace does Salva Kiir can bring? I don't think Salva Kiir had an intention to bring any peace in South Sudan. I don't think anyone can trust him now for peace in South Sudan. And anyone can trust him, he would be just a person who doesn't really read the story, know the man. Salva has no intention of bringing peace. He thinks he can win through military means. Like you say, yes, rebels do not have resources like the government have. And pretty much now with world be what it is today, is different from the time when the SPLM was operating in the 80s, when there was a war between the East and the West. So there was a process war there, and then SPLA was supported through that process. That thing is not there now. And then of course the strategy of the war today is also different within the government. They're dividing people within the group and make them fight among themselves, like it is happening now in South Sudan. So war is not really also an option. So then what is the option? What is an option? The peace Salva will bring will not be an option, and the war is not an option. Then what is an option? Strategically, this is how I think. I think we have to figure out a way to involve the world, to create some sort of a peace. I know there was something done, and I'm trying to figure out what was done in 2007 or 2008 with Sierra Leone when they were going through this civil war that actually killed all the people. There was also some model in other part of the world. That model could be revisited, and maybe it's something that needed to be done. I believe personally that had Wu Bashir been around at a time, and they worked together with Yoweri, even though it's hard to believe Yoweri's Museveni as he is. I think model that they had for revitalized peace agreement, even though there had been a lot of people who did not join, it would have been different. Maybe the unified forces would have happened. Maybe something would have been done, and could be different. I think we might need to have a peace that has to be guided. Maybe I don't know whether regionally or internationally. I think there's a trust deficit in South Sudan as we speak. We lost trust. We really, with women being killed, with children being killed, with people home being burned and all that, it would take time for people like that to happen. And sometimes culturally. There are those that will not give up, even if they don't have anything or don't have what it takes. And they can drag this country on to suffering for a very long time. We know that it has happened in some other country, that war never ends. And when there's no war ending, even if it is not just a traditional war or maybe a conventional war, even in the sense of whatever that is, it dragged country back to where it can collapse. So all in all, we need to have peace in South Sudan. We need to have peace in South Sudan. But I don't think peace that Salva remain the power-headed will mean anything, because anything that is going to touch him, he doesn't need it. Anything that is going to question his style of leadership, is not going to need it. And Salva has surrounded himself with people who can only back him. We can only hear. We can only want to. Who probably cannot even tell him what he does is wrong. So other people are with him. So it's really difficult. I think we need peace, but I will tell you, even if the international community try to give Salva Kiir another chance to go ahead and implement whatever peace that you want, you will see it. It's not going to be anything different from what he already did.
And that is the challenge, because the international community has to deal with him as the leader of the sovereign country. When you said about bringing in some form of international guarantee, not just the regional one, which may be an option because war is not an option.
Right.
Peace is tricky because the president has already signed peace, he's not implementing. So that's the challenge. The problem with the international aspect of this is the SPLM leaders feel like it infringes on sovereignty, and they talk about sovereignty. There's something Dr. Francis Madinga talked with some of co-authors. They call sovereignty as responsibility. So you can talk about sovereignty as some sort of an ideal that doesn't actually help the people. But if you take sovereignty as responsibility, then a responsibility to the people. That is the only time they may accept what you are saying, to say, we need to be responsible to our people. So let us accept this, because that is the only solution that can bring peace to the people of South Sudan. But they may not. They may not accept that. That's the challenge.
No, they might not accept it. And also the question of sovereignty is questionable, because if almost almost 80% of your people are depending on some sort of international system, if more than 5 million of your own people have been displaced into the refugee crisis camp, and the period might now be close to 5.5 million people to actually be displacing to the camp, what are you left with? It's not much. If people are not being protected, if people are not being served, there's no delivery of services that make a country a country. There's no health services, there's no education services, there's no security services, there's no infrastructure being put in place. You might have a constitution, you might have a flag, okay, but that's not enough. That's not what makes a nation a nation. It's a responsibility. I agree with Dr. Francis. It is your responsibility to protect people's lives. It is your responsibility to protect your integrity, to your territorial integrity. It is your responsibility to deliver services to your people. It's your responsibility to bring about peace to your country. If you don't have that, you signed the charter to be part of the international community that has the same mandate to ensure that you do not genocide the humanity, the human being that are in that corridor. Because you don't live in the island, you live in the same universe everybody lives in. And if you don't deliver that, one way or another, you probably will be told your right is violated and you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And also, would you know that the credit is that we would have not had South Sudan had it not been because of the contribution of the international community. It was the contribution of the international community from the onset. Yes, we fought the war, we shed blood, we lost so much. We advocated, we championed, we did everything that we could. But that did not bring us to the independence that we had. It was the voice and the contribution of the international body that made us sign the agreement that we call the Comprehensive Peace Agreement that we have, that also forced Khartoum to agree to accept the independent South Sudan when we voted for it in 2011. It was the international community. It is also the same international community that is now protecting our own people, that is actually serving our own people, that is doing everything that we have now in our country. So I will not see why the international community would be played by someone who is actually not doing anything to help his own people.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Thach. Amazing conversation, amazing insight. So I want to ask you the last question, which is your final word to the people living in diaspora so that they don't feel the crisis. They contribute towards peace and provision of services. As you know, much of the services in South Sudan is provided by international NGOs, not the government. So what do you tell the diaspora? What do
Yeah.
you tell SPLM-IO in terms of solutions, protection of civilians, and then the government of South Sudan and SSPDF? As someone who has done this work for a long time in leadership, what do you tell them?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Kroll. I really appreciate this dialogue, this conversation. It's very professional. You're doing great in what you do, and continue doing that. Continue to bring voice, diverse voice to our people. This is a great thing. Thank you so much. I have few things to say to our people. Especially, I would begin by saying that anything that has a beginning has an end. The funny part is that in the process, people involved, and when people involved, there's a number of marks that are put down, and those create legacy. You will be remembered because of what you do. Yes, I agree that people who are suffering, who are displaced from their home, should be supported by diaspora community. We should support them, and in fact, we should support them regardless of where you are. You have to support those people because they're South Sudanese. That is very important. Also, the diaspora communities should understand that the role we play prior to the independence of South Sudan was played because we believed that we could have a country that would represent our interests, our values, our dignity. And that is what we had at a higher level, strategically. We should also revisit that, even when we have differences, even when what we were thinking for is not what is happening. I think we should be very mindful of our messages. We should be very mindful of our influence. We should be looking forward for us to unite and to vote together to bring about lasting peace. Saying what needed to be said, as it means that it is all going to be about bringing peace. Yes, I disagree with Salva Kiir personally, because I thought what he did to the civilian is wrong. What he did to the country is wrong. What he did to our nation is wrong. And signing peace but not following it is not really right. So I disagree with it. But my disagreement to him is not a disagreement to my other community, especially my Denka community. And I would also see the same thing. For my Denka community, that might be disagreeing with somebody like Dr. Yamachar. It's not your disagreement. Let it not be a tribal thing. Let think bigger, because Nuer and Denka and other tribes in South Sudan will live in South Sudan for generations. The difference is that people have now will end. Those who want to divide this on a tribal basis is because they have interests, and they want to use the interests to benefit from our differences. We should stop that by looking at the bigger picture and working together as a community. IO has to also provide leadership at the same thing. They have to look at what is it that we are looking for it strategically, and there are others, opposition forces that are also, I know the system, that is also IO Kigwang, that also NAS, and there's others who are now in alliance with IO. And if you're all about bringing about peace in South Sudan, focus on the solution that united the people of South Sudan, that bring the hope to the people of South Sudan, that brings South Sudan to the map where it will mean what it meant when we began to have South Sudan. I think with that being said, I think my brother, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to at least have another conversation in the future. Thank you.
So thank you. We'll definitely bring you back because we're planning a segment on leadership in South Sudan, completely focusing on leadership. So I'm planning to talk to Quilaguer to bring him
Yeah,
back again. So I would want you to be part of it because we need these conversations. One of
right.
the things that we need to encourage in South Sudan is we don't have to agree.
Yeah,
As you said, we have to disagree, but then believe that we can still build a prosperous country. And disagreement is not bad
no,
because you may have a perspective that I don't have. I may have a perspective you don't have. And then when we talk, that's when I'm going to realize the fallacy in my own argument, in my own position. But if
right.
I'm stuck in my own corner and I
Yeah.
don't talk to people, I don't allow my viewpoint to be interrogated by others, then I assume that I'm fast. There's a saying, a Russian saying, that says, a horse that is running alone believes it is fast. Unless the other horse is that when the horse will know it's not fast, but when the horse is running alone, it will just believe it's the fastest in the world. So I think that's what we need, that we interrogate our viewpoints. And that's
Yeah.
how we succeed. And that is the problem in South Sudan. So I want to thank you. I want to thank those who have tuned in. The edited version of this will be posted on YouTube for people who want to watch it again.